Hi, Ben.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Emil. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you.
Do you have a good break?
Yeah, quite all right. Skiing a lot. Some
Right.
12,000 meters of altitude or something.
Oh, wow.
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we hear you, Christian.
I'm on a different headset than normal. How's it going?
Good. Good. Yeah.
Doing, guys?
Brett, I feel like you'd be jealous. I got to see the early screening of Dune Part 2 yesterday
Nice.
in IMAX. It's pretty good.
Sounds cool. I still haven't seen the first Dune or the non-David Lynch sci-fi Dune, so to speak. I'm doing this from my home laptop. I hope I don't run into a bunch of permission problems. You know how Macs are.
What was sharing your screen?
Yeah. Don't think I've ever shared my screen with Zoom before on this laptop.
Hello?
Hello, Under. All right. Let me share the links to the notes in the chat so everyone has it. I think we can get started. So welcome everyone to the CDEvents working group. Today is February the 26th. And yeah, my name is Andrea Fritto. I work for IBM. Feel free to sign yourself into the attendees list or participant list. Right, so we have a few things on the agenda for today. Just briefly, action items. I had some action items on the custom events proposal. I've done some updates, but maybe we can discuss them later in more details. And we had one action, I think, about defining interoperability in our documentation. I don't know that we have any updates on that, but yeah, just didn't want to forget about it. So let me stop sharing. I think, Brett, is it good time for you to start on your side? We have an agenda presentation from you.
Yeah, see if I can share my screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing then.
Might have to jump out and jump back in.
Yeah, the first time often has to restart Zoom or something.
All right, I got to jump out. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Yeah, things never go like you
Welcome
want
back.
them to. Yeah. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Looks good.
Good.
Cool. All right, let me do a couple of quick things. Here now, so it's displays. I'm gonna go ahead and do this now so that it's because you won't be able to read it if I don't. All right, so all right, can everybody see that pretty well?
Yep. That's
Yep.
good.
All right, I'm just jumping around here, making you guys sick with all the movement. Okay, so I started working on the workshop, the EPR workshop. The original intent was to do a workshop for CDEvents for the CD Foundation. What I ended up with is I got a commitment to do a 6-hour workshop in May on EPR, which will be cover more than just CDEvents. It's basically a workshop on event-driven architecture. And so I finally got around this weekend to really working on it. And so part of this workshop will get turned into the CDEvents workshop with more CDEvents content than I have right now. But I want to give you guys the first just blow through of where I am. So the thing's huge. It started out small, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But basically, I go through the introduction to event-driven microservices. I talk about cloud events. I talk about CDEvents, which I want you guys. I'll share this with you, this particular CDEvents thing with you, and maybe we can go through it and make sure that I didn't, say something stupid. I haven't been through it like word for word yet to like reread it a couple of times. So once I do my own reading of it, I will share it with you guys probably next week, and we talk about it. And then I go through Event Providence Registry and talk about its functionality and some high level stuff. Then we got a glossary of dictionaries, glossary of terms, talking about events, event receivers, and event receiver groups. So events are the core piece of this thing. The events are not the messages we put on the message bus. So the events are a data structure that we've come up with that helps us track these things through the system. And the way that this thing runs, it's a little different from what like some people might think as an event-driven system, because we have this audit trail of all the events. So every time we make an event, we post it to the event provenance registry, and it gets stored in the database. When we post the event to the event provenance receiver, we have these things called event receivers. Now, what event receivers are is they're a way to classify the events. So if I had a package build event, I would have an event receiver for package builds, and it would have a type that, if we were using CDEvents, its type would match the CDEvents type for that build. When you post an event and tie it to a receiver, the event provenance registry, the EPR, will create a message on the Kafka bus for the event. And that message will contain a whole bunch of information that'll help you, use it downstream. The last concept we have is called event receiver groups. It's just a list of event receivers, and it's a way to group types together. So if you had a type of package build and a type of package and a type of package scan, you could tie those three event receivers together into an event receiver group and call it, the type of life cycle of build, or the build life cycle, whatever you want to call it. We'll find a CDEvents term to call it. And then this group, as soon as it gets an event for each of the three event receivers that are successful, it will radiate a message onto the Kafka bus that says that that group has been finished and done. So the way we track things through the system is we've got this concept of NVRPP. It's name, version, release, platform ID, and package. And it's based off of Never, really. If you've worked with RPMs, they have a naming scheme, and so that convention lets us have track like foo 1.0.0 through the whole system all the way to the end. And say if we were packaging foo 1.0.0, but we were packaging it as an RPM, we could have a different package type here, and that would be a different one, you know, but we could tie it together with knowing that it's foo 1.0.0 and it's this release. And then we could change the platform ID. Say we're building it for PowerPC or ARM, we could change the platform ID. And that's how we track stuff through the system. We've got a successful key for the event that tells you whether it was a pass or fail. And the events are always, a message always comes out for the event, whether it's pass or fail, so that the downstream consumers can tell what happened. One of the downstream consumers we have are called watchers, and basically they're consuming the messages off of the Kafka bus and processing them and making a decision on whether they want to do something against them or not, based on whatever criteria we told the watcher to watch against. So the watcher could watch against, just watch for types, right? And every time a package build came through with a successful status, it could go run a scan of that package and create the scan, or it could create the SBOM, whatever you want to do with it. And since it's asynchronous, you could have 7 watchers all run off and do something right after the build at the same time, and they can finish at separate times, because as the watcher finishes its task, it'll post a message to the it'll post an event back to EPR, which will post a message on the bus that says it's done. And then if you had a bunch of watchers and their event receivers were all in an event receiver group, when all the watchers were done, the event receiver group will emit a message that says, hey, we're all done here. So that's like the main concept. I'm going over it kind of quick here because we don't have 6 hours. Right. And let's see. You guys still hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. It's just weird because I feel like I can't see the meeting at all. Anyway, so the whole thing's laid out in Markdown, of course. And I took the layout from a Kubernetes workshop. I saw the guy that did it with these, numbered folders that let you go through and do stuff. The reason why I wanted to look at it here was that's the overshoot. No, that's not what I want to set up. EPR intro. Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. You guys, I've got a section on Red Panda, on using Red Panda, and it's basically what Christian wrote, and I stole it and rewrote it. So thanks, Christian. Appreciate it. But then we get into the EPR code base. So we clone the code base. We go and we talk through how it's laid out. Christian's not happy with this right now. We need an internal folder, and some of this stuff shouldn't be accessible publicly. It's a list. It's in the list of issues we have to do. We've got a CLI that we made. You'll quickly see why the CLI is important. So then we switch over to the concepts, right? We've got a server. The server is EPR, and that's where like everything happens. Like we post everything to EPR and let EPR control the messaging on the bus. One of the concepts in this is that EPR is the only one who can talk to its topic, and that way you can always trust that it's the source of the truth, and you're not going to get false messages because EPR is the only one who can talk to that topic. Database, it's Postgres. We store the events, event receivers and event receiver groups. We don't delete anything out of the database because it's an audit trail. And we've been running this thing in something really similar at SAS for like 5.5 years now. And now we're starting to talk about an archiving. We're going to have to archive off some of this data that's no longer relevant. But but yeah, it's 5 years at full steam, and it's still manageable. Command line, I went over. Watcher, we went over, and then the message bus, we decided to use Red Panda instead of Kafka because Red Panda is awesome. It's a single binary written in C++. It's really nice. Here I cover the event data, the events data structure, and it's got some of the cloud events back in it. So, I mean, we got an ID, we've got a name, we've got a version, release, platform ID, package, payload, success, the event receiver ID. So this tells us which event receiver to associate this event with, and then the created at, and then when you get the data back on the message bus, there's a full event receiver in there. But you don't, that's created by EPR. You don't need to do anything with that one. Talked about the NVRPP. Event receivers are a little bit more simple. They've got an ID, a name, a version, type, which would match up with like a CD event type, description. They have a schema, which would match up with the CD event schema. I'll get to that. They have a fingerprint, and the fingerprint was for us to be able to easily find them and make sure they were unique. And then we got to create it at. I think we enabled search, but I don't know if we have enabled search by fingerprint, but we will if there's an issue to it to be able to search by fingerprint. Then we have the event receiver group. It's very similar to the event receiver. It's got an ID, name, version, type, description. And then we have a concept of enabled or disabled. Since we don't delete anything in the system, what you don't want is you've got an event receiver group with event receiver A, B, and C in it. And then you decide to make a new event receiver group with A, B, C, and D. And you don't want the old event receiver group to fire anymore. So you need to go disable it so that it won't shoot a message every time A, B, and C, or it'll wait until and the new one will fire when A, B, C, D are satisfied. And then, of course, got a list of the event receiver IDs that are in it. So the workflow, this is all a bunch of words. This is all great, but I'll just show you guys the picture. Let's hope it comes up. Yes, there. This is Mermaid, by the way. So it doesn't look like that. It's a bunch of words. But basically, you've got the EPR server at the center, and then you can use the CLI to create an event. And then that event will create a message, which will hit Red Panda. And then like you could have a watcher that consumes the message. It does something, and then the watcher creates an event, which creates a message, which creates, you see what I'm getting at here. Every time we get an event, we stick it in the database. And then you could have a separate CLI create events. I'm going to work on this diagram. Anyway, that's kind of the idea, though. It's pretty basic, but the whole idea was that it lets us bolt on event-driven architecture into an existing pipeline. So if you had a Jenkins job that was doing something over here, you could just add the EPR CLI to the Jenkins job, and when that thing is done, it'll create an event and post it to the server. And so there's no, it's not hard to go add event-driven to what used to not be event-driven. We have a watcher inside in SAS that we call Astra, and Astra watches for messages, and then it'll trigger Jenkins jobs for us. And then in the new world, we've moved to GitHub. We've got another watcher called Octobus, which uses can authenticate as a GitHub app, and it can fire GitHub workflows when it sees messages. So those are real useful. Okay. So after this, so there is some hands-on real quick, and I know I'm not like walking you guys, I'm like just talking to you guys about what I've done, not really walking you through this thing. So in the Red Panda, there's definitely some hands-on where we go through and do some stuff. This section that's bothering me is the requirements section, because you need Docker and Docker Compose, and you need Go, and you need some miscellaneous tools, and I'm worried about that part of it for the workshop. I think I talked to Ben about that last week, but I did still wrote it up just in case. So then we get to the part where we start running stuff. So this is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I've got it running right here. You run a Docker Compose up and you get your Postgres and your Red Panda running right here. And then I've got the server running right here. For the purpose of the, I'll stop this. So for the purpose of the workshop, we can do a make, and this can be run like with Go Run main if you want to, but I'm building the binary out here to make sure that it passed all its tests and it's ready to roll. Don't start it up without the back end running. So back end comes up, we fire up the server, and now we're good. Now we can go over to the GitHub, to Red Panda's console first, which is really cool. This is awesome, by the way. And so you've got your Red Panda's running, you got a topic, and we don't have any messages yet, but it's pretty nice graphics where you can see what you're doing here. Once all that's up, the server has a GraphQL playground built into it. And if you see here, we can start to do some stuff in the GraphQL API. Let's see. So once we built the server, you export a couple of variables, fire the server up. There's flags for these, but it's easier to just export the variables and run it. So we go to the GraphQL and we can do stuff like this. You can just copy this piece right here, come over to this section, and go like this. Boom, mutation. And then if you've got the documentation, and it'll go through and tell you how you can do it, because you can query by an event or you can query by an ID, and it'll walk you through. Like, this thing will tell you the syntax is wrong if you do something stupid, like hit the back button when you're talking. Like if I come in here and I put in foo colon, you can see it breaks. So now I'm going to show you the drawback of this is that all right, so I create it and I get back this. Now I got to keep track of this. And this is the part where the where the workshop gets tricky, is that you've got to keep track of all of these values. And so when I get this one here, right, I need to, so if I want to create an event receiver group, now this doesn't make a lot of sense right now because I've only got one event receiver. So creating an event receiver group with only one event receiver doesn't make a lot of sense. Normally you would do this with 2 or 3, but I'm just doing this so that we can see this. So I come in here. And then I create this, and I get this event receiver group. Okay. Now I've got an event receiver and event receiver group. Now, this is UI. It's just an easy way to play with the GraphQL front end. I can enable it and disable the groups here, but now we can go and create an event. These are all mutations, of course. We'll get to queries in a second. after watching this, if you guys have got any suggestions on this ID problem, I'm more than willing to listen. On the command line, it's easier because you can use JQ to pull this out and save it as an environment variable.
Yeah, I guess you could have small scripts, you know, with the limiters where you run the script, it output for you the text that you need to put in the UI or something like that.
Yeah, I've done this I've done that on a couple of these. In some of the later examples, it's just it starts to become a pain in the neck. So I started to do it. Like when I show you how to do some of the stuff with, I don't think we'll get to it today, but when we get to some of that stuff with curl, you'll just be like, okay, dude, I know why you wrote the CLI now, because the curl is just miserable. But anyway, so we create the event, and now we have an event. This is also, I think this is good visualization of the work, because you get in there and you start doing nothing but you get in there and you start working in the command line, and it's like you get lost in all that gray. You know what I mean? So now we can go query this event. What did you do? I think that's not the one I wanted. I thought I copied it. No, I didn't. I'm going to do this last one here, and then I'm going to move off of this UI because the UI is pretty annoying. So now we're going to go create an event. Search for the event by ID. And there we go. So there's our event. Now let's go look at the messages. Hopefully this created messages, or else I'm in trouble. And there we go. Woohoo! Yes, win. Okay. So, so here's where we get the events message. And so this particular one was where we created the event receiver. The event receivers are, that type is hard coded, so you know that to ignore that message if you're trying to find something downstream. This is the group, it's similar, hard coded again, so you know to ignore that message downstream. This is the event. And you see that in the event, you've got like everything you need to figure out what happened. You've got the payload, you've got the actual full event receiver, you've got a list of event receivers. There's probably some duplicate data here that Christian and I and some others can talk about cleaning up. But for now, you got everything you need to go figure out what happened. And then let's see. What was this one? Oh, this was the event group. This is the event group receiver firing off. So anyway, I got to fix that because obviously that's busted. Awesome. Anyway, so that's what we get on that message bus. You can search by event. So if I run this query and I only know the name and version, I can get back. I can steer my screen here. I should be able to get back a lot of stuff. So now you got every event that's happened to foo in one query. You do the same thing with event receivers and event receiver groups. You can get back large groups of them from the service. Okay. Curl. So you can already tell this starts to get ugly when you start working with curl. It gets ugly pretty fast. And this is the REST endpoint. You can also use curl with the GraphQL endpoints. It's even uglier than this. But if we take this, we come in here and we change a couple of things. You can see we get back that. Let's see. If we want to create an event, of course, we need this value right here. And you can see where this gets really painful. Because like I don't want to mess up my doc, so I probably need like a separate doc where I'm just cutting and pasting these things and fixing the ID problem. The robots don't have a problem with this. It's just the humans that have a problem with this.
Yeah, I mean, when doing this sort of stuff myself, copy pasting our example commands out of like Markdown or READMEs, I usually just place the IDs inside of the example commands and then just hope I remember to do a git reset afterwards.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's
that's what I have
definitely
been.
it's
Yeah,
definitely cumbersome, but I
yeah,
don't have
that's what I've
a
been.
better approach.
That's what I've been doing as well. So, and you can see what I did there. I just copied it down. Anyway, so this lets us create the magnificent 7. If we go back to the GraphQL, was it 701 or 7? That's a good question. 701. Of course, it's 701. You can't do anything normal. Can you, Smith? And then to be able to search for it. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. Oh, you can access them like directly, but you can't search the REST endpoints, and that was intentional. One of the things that I did when I got the client, when I finished the client, like the client's pretty good right now, but it's still using the REST endpoints to do the creates. When I get the client to the point where it can do the mutation to do the creates, I want to get it where we can turn off the API, turn off the REST API if we feel like it, and only have the QL API. And then you can see here that the GraphQL gets really ugly when you're trying to do it through curl. Again, CLI makes some stuff easier. So if we not here, let's see. So if we CD in the CLI, we do a make clean, and then we do a make. And in the workshop, we're going to do a make install and install it to our path. For here, I don't want it in my path right now, so I'm going to just do a make Darwin ARM64. And then so the CLI has a dry run state. It's kind of neat. Please don't blow up. Please don't blow up. Please don't blow up. And in the dry run, I get to see back what I got here. And I thought I added a switch for in the dry run. I thought I had added I thought it would give you back the curl command. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm on the wrong branch when I built it. One of these, it will. Oh, that's right. I haven't done it for the create command yet, but the search command, when you search, if you do a dry run, it will give you back the curl command that you can run. And so once I move the CLI over to using once I fix the client so it can use the GraphQL endpoint, I will have it output the GraphQL curl command during the dry run. I know it sounds, you're like, well, what do you get out of that? I don't know. It's fun. It helps for troubleshooting, I'll tell you that. Learning the GraphQL is super fun. I know Christian can attest to that. So now we got that back, and now we can search. We can search by ID. And then, so instead of bothering to type in all the fields that I want back, I got a special field called all, and this CLI just says, oh, okay, give me back everything for the, oh, that worked out real well. What did I break? Well, it's not a demo if something doesn't break, right? Oh, the all broke. I have no clue what this thing just did, but whatever it did was wrong. Because look, it brought back all of the event receivers. It's not supposed to do that. Okay, cool. Well, I got work to do, right? So then we get to the CDEvents part. And then, so what I did with the CDEvents is that we talk about schema and how important schema is, right? And then we create our first event receiver for a CDEvent. And so you see we've got the type matching up with the CDEvents type. And then we've got the schema is the schema for the artifact packaged event. And you can see how much fun this is with curl. And then this allows us to make sure that we can only post CDEvents to this event receiver. And it can only be an artifact packaged event to that event receiver. I was worried that was going to blow up. I haven't copied and pasted that one in a while. Now I'm just going to pull I'm just going to pull a Christian here and take the example and paste the gate, paste the event right in it. And then, so now I've got this CD artifact event, right? With the type, and this is all in the payload section. So my whole CDEvents in the payload section. And then I've got my name for the archive artifact that I packaged as foo. The version's 1, the release is this, platform ID is this, the package type's OCI. There's a description, and then of course I got the payload, and then the build was successful. So I record this. And boom, we got that. So we jump back over here. Hope this works. Oh, it doesn't. It won't let me do that. Because I need to do it by ID. This should be awesome. Let's see if this works. So event receiver by ID. See how this UI is helpful? And then we search, and I blew it up because I forgot this.
You're trying to search for the event, right?
Yeah, this is where I screwed up. Hang on. Okay. Woohoo! And there we go. And then here's my event back by the ID. I could also use the name, go back to the name stuff, but for now, we'll just look at that. Now, let's go see what Red Panda thinks. Super awesome trait about this UI is that you can set it up to refresh, but it doesn't work very well. So I just end up having to refresh it every time anyway. And you see that we've got events for all the stuff we've been doing. Like that. And with that, I've been at it for long enough that I'm going to. Okay, so there's a couple other concepts. I'm not going to get to them now because it gets more and more complicated. But so I've got S-bombs, same idea as CDEvents. You go grab the schema from Cyclone DX, you create an event receiver with that schema, you make an S-bomb. You see here that I just there's no way I'm going to curl paste this stuff. So you start throwing it into some JSON and then you can post like this. And you get going there. Then we get to, this is the part that is really cool is when you get to the watcher. And so we've got an SDK from it. So I walk through like the types of watchers you can make and what their usefulness is and that type of stuff. Can't believe I haven't put the thing in there yet. Okay, anyway. So we've got an SDK for watchers. And so you can literally write a watcher in like no time at all. Hardly any code. And then you can have a custom action that it does after it hits the watcher. Enhanced, what's enhanced going to be? Oh, this is where I let people do whatever they want. I'm working on the Python client. Pretty far along on the Python client. The Python client should have been half written by AI. So we'll see how that goes, right? Yeah. How do I get out of presenting? All right, cool. What do you guys think so far?
Yeah, it definitely was a lot. Kind of went through it kind of quickly. But yeah, I think it's good. I think there's a lot of small steps. I mean, it really depends on your audience too. Yep. I don't know if you're expecting people to like know what curl is and know how to use it in GraphQL, for example. If you are, if this is expected to be where you expect candidates to know these things, then I think it's fine. And I think showing them the curl I think is important. So I know you mentioned that's kind of a little bit hairy, and then using the CLI is easier, but I think definitely having the curl in there to have them understand what's going on like under the hood is really valuable. But yeah, I think as a good like first view of this, I think it's pretty fine. I mean, like I said, you have 6 hours, so I think you will definitely have a lot of questions because like I said, there's definitely a lot of details, so something's bound to go wrong for definitely a handful of people, right? So but really excited to see the work that you've done with that. But yeah, that was kind of my take from it.
Yeah, so the GraphQL, I've been torn about the GraphQL thing, showing that first, right? Because like you said, if you paid the money to fly out to San Diego and you paid the money to come to this conference, right? Which is, I think it's like $1,000, or your company paid for it. I would hope that you know something about curl, right?
Yeah.
The GraphQL I can understand not knowing. It is definitely a more advanced thing. So my question to you is that maybe instead of starting with the GraphQL UI, we start with the curl commands? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely start with the curl. Like, definitely go easiest to the more difficult. Because like if someone jumps right in and immediately they're faced with things going wrong with GraphQL, especially with like uncertainty on like what the tool is, that could definitely leave kind of like a bad, not really a bad impression, but like more of an uphill battle, as opposed to like if they're more familiar with curl, they're less likely to have problems. So like that's like a small win to them, right? And then also, how deep do you plan on going into the GraphQL? I imagine you don't plan on like going too deeply into it. Is the goal just kind of like just to show like how it's stored and like how it's traversed, or like what's the goal behind showing them the database layer?
I don't know. I trying to fill 6 hours.
Got it. Yeah, that's completely fair. That's completely fair.
Like
The reason
like
the
when you
reason
leave
why,
this, you should, well, okay, so here's a quick, from the top of my head, one of the reasons why the GraphQL is important. When you leave the 6 hour workshop, not the CDEvents one, I got a different goal for the CDEvents. When you leave the CDEvents workshop, I want you to know that CDEvents is awesome. It's your interoperability language, and that CDEvents lets you classify and do all this cool stuff, right? It's not as much about what event-driven architecture looks like, right? I would expect that if you came to a CDEvents workshop, you would understand at least some minor understanding of event-driven. For this 6 hour workshop, it's an event-driven architecture workshop, and I want you to come away knowing that REST isn't going to be good enough, right? You're going to need a better query language than REST. I think is what I'm trying to come away with there. And I could be wrong, but
okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think that's completely fine, because like the reason why I ask is because GraphQL in itself could be like a 6 hour workshop, right? So
yes,
I'm just wondering like how deep,
not
you
deep.
okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay, cool. Yeah, like I
Now
said,
I'm gonna cover mutations and queries, right? But I'm not gonna cover subscriptions and all that other stuff. But you can do that stuff, right? But I'm not gonna
right.
cover it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think just touching on the high levels then is more than sufficient. And I'm sure you're gonna also get questions. I want to play a little bit of like the customer or the user that's at this workshop. Like I might ask, why not use like a regular database like SQL or a document DB? Like why GraphQL? So definitely expect that question. That will be probably the number one when especially if they're not familiar with GraphQL, they might be wondering like, why would I use this?
Right. And then I explained to them that, well, we did use a regular database. We always use Postgres. We use Postgres until Postgres doesn't work anymore. The GraphQL is your search layer on top of your search layer on top of your database. It's your language, it's your query language that you put on top of the other query language, so you don't have to write SQL. One of the things we're trying to avoid, and I'll keep this short. One of the things we're trying to avoid is in a previous system, we ended up with a SQL language in a query string for the REST API, and it is miserable. GraphQL lets you avoid that. Writing SQL queries in a REST post is not only insecure, but it is miserable. And as hard as GraphQL is to learn, it's still better than writing SQL queries in a REST call with with variables and stuff. Just miserable.
Okay,
So yeah.
cool. Yeah, I definitely think, yeah,
Uh,
expanding on that, like explaining why you might want to use GraphQL as opposed to like just raw SQL, like just adding that section, because like I said, like they're definitely gonna wonder,
yep.
especially like if they're unfamiliar with it. But yeah, like I said, overall, I think it's really, really solid. Like I said, I would like to do the workshop maybe like maybe like I said, you can ping me directly, Brett, and we could do like maybe just taking like an hour of my time, maybe an hour or two, and then like doing like we could do like 3 sections, to get the full thing, and kind of see how it flows. Obviously, like me, anyone on the SIG, right, is going to be more um familiar with all the technologies, but I definitely think it's a good run through to get someone like like let's just call us advanced, and if we're having trouble understanding like some concepts or like how you're connecting things, then that's something that you can definitely clear up, right? So I think that's definitely a good approach.
Yeah. I would say that if I walk through this with you and anybody in this SIG, and anybody on this SIG gets unclear on what we're trying to do, then I know I've got a problem on the way I'm presenting the information, right?
Right,
Um,
definitely.
because this audience should completely get it and understand it. Um, there's a whole bunch of concepts that I worry about. I think my intent is to keep this thing hands on as possible, because if I start going into theory, that's when I like, if I'm in a workshop and a dude's going into theory and I'm not interested in the theory, it just gets really bad. Like I get really bored. Um, so I think I'm trying to keep it as hands on as possible. Um, and then explain the theory while we're doing the hands on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's perfect. Like that's how I definitely approach this as well. I think that's definitely the way to go. Mostly because, yeah, like you said, a lot of engineers, I mean, not saying that they can't do theory, but a lot of engineers are more hands-on-y than, like, for instance, you don't see a lot of engineers reading the white paper first and then like implementing something, right? They usually just go like, oh, this sounds cool, and go and implement it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Let me go beat my head against it, right?
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Yeah, no, like I said, get some, find some time with me, just ping me directly, and I'd be more than happy to do like a few sessions, to see, how it kind of like plays out, and see if we can identify any road bumps that needs to be ironed out.
Cool. The in my intent for the CD event section, for the 6 hour is going to be shorter, but for the regular CD events, so in the S bomb section, which is the next session, the section that I just kind of blew over, in that section, the intent is that I'm going to create an S bomb, and then I'm going to create a CD event that represents the fact I created the S bomb, and then kind of link those together to give you the idea of how you can use CD events in your system to glue everything together. Um, for the events that the tasks that you're running. So that's kind of the intent there. Um, honestly, I've got to sit down with the CD event spec and get way more familiar with it than I am now. But like, I understand the concepts. I've read the front pages, but I haven't, like, again, hands on. So part of this is going to be fun because I'm going to go and hands on this thing. Um, so now you guys need to ask me how much AI I've used to do this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like for me, like that's I've never heard of someone using AI to generate a workshop. But dude, that sounds really like a really fast and good proof of concept way of doing this. Yeah, I'm really curious to see like how you went about doing that.
All
There
right,
could be a
so
workshop on that topic.
yeah, there could.
Right?
There could. Yeah, because you'd be amazed. So does Andre? We only got about 5 minutes left. Do you want me to just stop so that you can share your screen and close up, or do you guys want to hear the story about how I did the AI, how I've been using the AI?
No, that's fine for me to hear the story. I don't know if anyone had anything urgent that would like to bring
So
up today.
so last August we did a POC with Copilot at work, I effing hated it. It drove me nuts. It was so bad. I spent so much time fixing it. Bad code it wrote. It was not good at Go. It was even worse at Rust. Um, so fast forward a couple of months, and I'm like, I'm going to go head first into this AI stuff and start learning all this stuff. And so I started working with ChatGPT and Bard, and I started looking for free um, AI assistants to plug into the IDE. And I landed on, I went through a bunch of them, and they were all pretty bad. And I landed on BitO, which turned out to be okay, but it wasn't much. It was barely better than Copilot. So the other day, I was searching again, looking for something other than Copilot, because I don't want to pay Copilot for my personal use. And I landed on Codium, and it's CODEIUM. All right. And holy moly, it's pretty good for Go. I haven't used it with Rust yet, but it's been pretty good for Go. Good enough that like I was using it for parts of the working on the CLI, and once it got the context of what I was working on, it was really helpful in finishing up boilerplate junk, like where you just got to go through and pull all the variables out of the environment and stuff. It was really good at that, because once it understood what an event data structure was, it knew what I was going to do, which was scary in its own right. But hey, this is an open source project, whatever. And then they've got this beta feature that works on Markdown, and so I started using it to write like the intro sections to these things, because it's a lot of words, right? And you get tired of writing out. And in this section, we're going to blah, 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 right? And then this thing started being able to tab and really work. Well, I found out that after I wrote a bunch of stuff, I've been training I asked ChatGPT to write me an outline for an event-driven workshop. And then I've had this chat open for 3.5 months, and I've been feeding it EPR stuff over and over again until ChatGPT, this particular chat, really has a decent understanding of EPR. Better than like Bard or Gemini at any, like I tried to use Gemini over the weekend, the Google one. It's horrible. It hallucinates, it makes up stuff. I finally got ChatGPT to quit hallucinating on the EPR I quit writing code with it. I was like, okay, let's not write code with ChatGPT. It's horrible at it. And I just started writing outlines and documents with it and having it reword sections of the text. And it's pretty awesome, man. So I went and wrote a bunch of prompts for each section after I took the main outline. I rewrote it by hand because it wasn't that great. And I went and wrote a bunch of prompts for each of the sections, and then told ChatGPT to generate an outline for this section. And I went through and it did it. And that's where the readmes ended up being the outline. And then with the outline, I went and said, okay, I need a section for this, section that, section this. Then I took all the work that like Christian and me and the other guys had done on how-tos and tutorials, and just started running through them and reading them and working through them and realizing that, hey, these don't sound the greatest. These sound like, they sound really like what I'm thinking, and what's supposed to happen. And so I went through and had ChatGPT help me rewrite some of the intro sections. And it turned out pretty well. I mean, I have to go back a lot and like get rid of the uncanny valley crap, because it will definitely talk in a high level language. So, but anyway, thanks, Emil. See you. So anyway, yeah, that's been the experience. But you saw all the data here, right? When I started on this Friday afternoon, Friday afternoon. It was really Saturday morning early. I started on it Friday afternoon. I made the folders and the prompts, but when I started on this Saturday morning, I didn't have anything. And so what I just showed you guys today is all stuff I generated over the weekend in 2 days. Yeah.
Cool. No, I mean, yeah, like I said, that's a really interesting idea, like using it to generate like the instructions and the documentation. It's actually a really good idea. I'm gonna start thinking about like different ways of approaching documentation with this, because yeah, like I said, like no engineer likes writing documentation. So definitely an interesting use case that you found there.
Yeah, it's not like if I took one of the pages where there's a bunch of steps where we walk through stuff, right? Like the pages where I was cutting and pasting stuff. If I take one of those and tell ChatGPT to rewrite that and reword it and make it better, it doesn't. It comes back with almost the same thing you pasted in. So you really got to think about what you tell ChatGPT and what you actually want it to work on. And once you figure out that it's pretty good at rewording intro sections and descriptions, that's when you start to really like pick up speed. Because writing the commands isn't that big a deal. The steps are easy because as the designer, the steps. But writing all that nice fluffy stuff at the beginning is a pain in the ass. So
Right,
anyway,
right. Cool. Well, like I said,
yeah.
was really good to see. But yeah, like I said, really interested in seeing like the full turnout of it, especially with the CDEvent stuff. But yeah, awesome job, man.
Yeah, next week what I'll do is by next Monday, I won't have a lot of time to work on it this weekend coming up because I've got to go see my daughter play lacrosse. But hopefully I will get this into a state where I can at least share it with you, whoever wants to read it, and you guys can, go through and I don't know, make suggestions. The workshop it's not like I'm going to read all this stuff to the people at the workshop. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm going to stand up there and walk through each section and read each piece. So it's a lot of data that's going to be, I don't know, filtered through a human. Anyway, that's what I got. We're over. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett.
Hopefully we can get more people involved with CDEvents through some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I work on
that'd
the
be
project,
great.
so I'm biased, but I thought that was a good overview.
Yeah, you are biased. I got some of that stuff I stole. Some of that shit you wrote. The Red Panda stuff you wrote.
I think half the Red Panda thing was taken from their documentation directly, so
It was. It's been
it's like a little
rewritten now by
borrowing.
AI. It's been rewritten by AI, so now nobody owns it. Anyway, all right. I'll talk to
All
you guys
right.
later.
All right, have a good one, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.